I can make a guess that if you're watching this video, you're a big fan of the P2 Volvo XC90. Just like me, I have my own V8 at home, but I've been trying to review pretty much every version of Volvo's sacred SUV and every single engine option, and today we have quite the special guest. I've been in Spain for the past few weeks and I've been hoping to stumble upon some coal-powered Volvos, so without further ado, I present to you Volvo's XC90 D5. So welcome to the P2 XC90, one of my favorite SUVs on the road and favorite SUVs of all time. Many of you may know that I have my own XC90 V8 across the pond, which I miss dearly, but this one certainly does fill that Volvo-shaped hole in my heart. For those that don't know, the P2 XC90 was sold from 2003 to 2015, and in some countries like China, it was sold beyond then as well as the XC Classic. Volvo sold these things pretty much everywhere across the planet, no matter where you go, so these things are everywhere, and people everywhere love them. Volvo offered a multitude of engine options varying from some petrol engines and some diesel engines, automatic and manual transmission, front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. They really have made an XC90 for everyone, everywhere. This wonderful example of the P2 XC90 beside me belongs to my new friend Carlos. It's a 2005 XC90 D5 Executive. It really is a golden egg of the XC90. Carlos has actually owned this XC90 since 2005, and it's actually one of the first 20 XC90 executives to arrive in Spain. The MSRP of this XC90 when it was new in 2005, because it's the executive and it has a multitude of options on it, brought the MSRP to almost 90,000 euros, of course including tax. This XC90 is also in a very desirable configuration because it's fitted in Volvo's cedar green pearl. It's uncommon in the US. I don't think we got this color at all, and I like it so much that I would love to paint my XC90 in this color as well. It's a very sharp looking color. For these pre-facelift XC90s in Europe, Volvo offered 3 different trim levels, and we'll also see some slight differences between the European XC90s and the American XC90s like mine. First, we start at the XC90S, which was the base spec, starting at about 51,000 euros. That had manual seats, no sunroof. You could get cloth seats in your base XC90, but Volvo offered parking sensors and stability control as standard equipment. Then we move up to the XC90 SE, which offered standard leather seating, a few more standard features as well. And then finally we have the XC90 Executive like this one, the top shebang. And of course, Volvo offered an infinite amount of options and accessories to make your XC90 as unique as you want it to be. As you would expect in the executive trim, Volvo offers extreme comfort and refinement for the XC90 Executive. One of the main distinctions of the XC90 Executive on the exterior will be the body-colored door handles and also the lower trim. You also get unique alloy wheels on the XC90 Executive, which we will mention just in a moment. Inside, Volvo offered more premium and soft-touch points, like on the door cards. The European executives get nicer door cards than the American executives. The first and second row seats have thicker and softer leather, which is substantially different from the normal leather in the XC90s, which is already nice as well. Volvo also offered a rear entertainment system for the rear passengers, headphones that can be wired or wireless, a GPS in the front, a car phone, and even a refrigerator in the center console. These things were loaded to the gills. One of the low-key things that Volvo added on the executive models back in the day were the crests on the C-pillar. They put these on the XC90 and also the flagship S80 as well. In Europe, you could only choose 2 engine options for the XC90. The base engine option was actually the D5, and then you could get the twin-turbo straight 6, also known as the T6. Today we will be glorifying the diesel XC90 because it's something we do not get across the pond. I'm very excited. Even though it may be underwhelming to some, it's still kind of cool. So my friends, the moment that we've been waiting for, behold the D52244T4, a 2.4 liter common rail direct injection diesel. Of course it's a 5-cylinder in Volvo fashion. It really is a tugboat of a motor. It isn't the most powerful engine option that you could get in the XC90, but I will say it's probably one of the most frugal. In this application, because it's the older version of this engine, it makes 163 horsepower and 251 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 for this diesel powertrain of the XC90. Mind you that different transmissions and later years will be a little bit faster. 12.3 seconds. If you got the manual transmission with this engine, it was 12.2 seconds, so a little bit faster. But as you could tell, you could get 2 different transmission options for the XC90. Either an ASIN 5-speed automatic that this one has, or a 6-speed manual known as the M66. This engine and transmission combo is paired to Haldex Generation 2, so it's still an early version of Haldex, which causes the front wheels to require more slip to send power to the rear. So fuel economy, of course, is the strong suit of the D5. Volvo advertises this at 24 miles per gallon in the city, 38 on the highway, and a combined rating of 31. And per kilometers per liter, Volvo rates this at 11.8 in the city, 9 on the highway, and a combined rating of 7.4. This one has actually been getting about 7.5, which is actually pretty accurate as well. So the diesel is where the efficiency lies. Really impressive numbers for something that's almost 5,000 pounds. Of course, these aren't necessarily Toyota Prados in terms of reliability, but these are still pretty stout vehicles, especially with the right maintenance. There are some issues that the D5s and these older XC90s are known to have. First of all, because it's direct injection and an early form of it, these can have injector issues and they can clog, so just make sure you change your fuel filter pretty regularly. These can also have some intercooler issues, but they're all things with age. Primarily with these older XC90s, they have Haldex issues. So the angle gear, which is the front differential, can strip, and unfortunately, that's the case with this one. And it is a pretty labor-intensive job to repair it. 2 things I wanted to mention about this XC90 in particular are that it has the optional HID headlights. They may look like the normal halogen housings, but they are a reflector style HID. The American ones could get this as well. This one also has power folding mirrors, which is something that you don't see often on these older XC90s as well. Around the side, the XC90 in Europe is pretty much the same. The bumpers are the same, so it's the same length, about 189 inches long. And the main way that many of us Volvo nerds, including me, have discovered that this one and the ones that look like this is an executive are because of these wheels. They're 18-inch alloy wheels, and they're actually 2-piece made by BBS. They're named Neuris. You could either get them in this painted silver finish or a polished aluminum finish as well. XC90s have been loved and valued by many, again including me, because of the versatility of them as well, and the trunk space really makes up for it. This one of the struts is bad, but there's a lot of space back here. There's 15.8 cubic feet of volume behind the third row with it folded up. And for those wondering, the third row is actually optional on the XC90s, especially in these older ones. You might not see the third row. There's 41.8 cubic feet of volume behind the second row with the third row folded flat. And then if you fold the second and third row down, you get 85.8 cubic feet of volume, which is really big. If you want maximum space in your XC90, the passenger front seat can fold flat, and that gives you up to 93 cubic feet of volume in your Volvo SUV. Before my arm gets tired, we can talk about towing capacity. For this 2.4 D5, Volvo rates this at just under 2,500 kilos, so about 5,000 pounds. So surprisingly, every XC90 has about the same towing capacity. Of course, I wouldn't go that much beyond the capacity that this is rated at, but these things are very strong as they are. So to get in the third row of the XC90 D5 Executive, there's an easy lever on this side of the seat right here. You just slide it forward, and then we can get in. Of course, this isn't huge, like whatever it is huge on the road right now, but we can hop on in. And then you can see, I'll slide this seat back, and then the headrest. You can see I'm 5'9", and I have a reasonable amount of space back here. It's bigger than some smaller SUVs and bigger than some SUVs of this same stature as well. There's indents on the back side of the second row seats, so my knees can fit. I can kind of fit my feet under the seats, and because this is pretty boxy, I have, well, my hair is just barely rubbing up against the headliner, so it's not too bad back here. The seats are also pretty comfortable, and also there's a little bit of storage in the middle here. There's also cup holders for each side. And something that I've also found very strange about these XC90s is that the climate control for the rear seats is right here. It's very strange. You have to turn it on in the front, but this is where you adjust the rear climate control. Strange, but now let's get out of here. As we get into the rear seat, the door opens just the same as the American spec XC90s. And as we get in, we'll sit in the softer executive leather upholstery. It's very nice, and that's the first thing I want to talk about. The leather in here is much softer than even my own V8 executive at home. Of course, this one, at its 20 years of age, is showing some wear and tear, but it's honestly not that bad. The seats aren't ripped and torn like some other vehicles that you may see. You still have the two rear screens in the back. I actually like these more because these front headrests stick out a little bit more forward for more support, a little thicker. The seats, of course, are very comfortable. Again, I'm 5'9", and I have a reasonable amount of legroom. The driver's seat is actually a little bit farther back than how I normally sit in my own car, and I can fit my feet under the seats. I have very nice headroom because this one doesn't have the sunroof, so it's actually pretty nice. One of the things I really am jealous about the European executive models is that these have leather on the side of the door cards right here. It's so much nicer, so much softer, and it looks premium as well. I also like the added wood trim that you get. In between the two front seats, you'll see the slot for the DVD player. There's also 3 audio and video jacks on the bottom side, so you could plug in a console. There's a power outlet back here, an ashtray for those that do smoke, or maybe your children may be smoking. You'll also see that these seats slide forwards and backwards, and all 3 of them slide independently. It's a 40-20-40 split, so these things are really nice. So if you have a baby, the baby can be all the way in the front. Now, my friends, we are one step closer to being able to drive the XC90 D5 Executive. The doors still close with the same solid thunk. Thankfully, build quality doesn't change between the Euro and American spec XC90s because they're all built here. They just get nicer things on this side of the water, though. We also get the same door cards in the front here, and the armrest is soft and padded as well. I'm really jealous about that. And it's hard to find them nowadays because these things are old, but this is the key fob for the XC90. It's slightly different than mine because it doesn't have the hook at the bottom here, but of course it's a flip key. Very nice. And for those that don't know, the yellow button is to turn on the parking lights so you can find your XC90. But because this one is a diesel, I'm going to give it a second. You can put the key in and listen to the nostalgic Volvo chime. And let's clatter away. So welcome to the interior of the XC90 D5 Executive. It isn't too different from my XC90, and you can see that throughout the over-decade lifespan of this car, they kept the interior pretty similar. They just added different touch points inside and also different trim on the inside as well. First of all, this one has a 4-spoke leather-wrapped steering wheel. I like this wheel. This is actually the wheel that came on my XC90 as well, but I swapped it for the wood one. It has buttons on it. The left side, those buttons control the cruise control. The right side, those buttons control audio. And this one has a phone in it as well. You'll learn where that is. And on the back side of that, there's the controls for the GPS. It also comes with a remote as well, but these buttons are pretty intuitive, and I sometimes use my GPS in mine. As we look up at the gauges, you'll see that they're very similar to all other P2 Volvos, and they're more simple than my gauges. They don't have the silver rings that the later year Volvos have, but still very easy to read. Not a lot going on, but there is a nice little information screen on the bottom left that you can scroll using the wheel on the left the left turn signal stalk. Speaking about the lights, the headlights on this are automatic as well as the wipers, but I find it interesting that this one has rain sensing wipers, but it doesn't have heated seats. It also doesn't have a sunroof, so it's an interesting combination of options in the XC90. I also like the wood trim that you get on the front door cards as well. I am jealous about the wood trim. I'm kind of an old man for wood trim, and you can see how nice the leather is on the door card and the armrest. I can't get over that. As soon as I get home, I'm going to start looking for that as well. Everything else though feels pretty similar. The top of the door card is a nice soft touch material, but everything isn't super duper soft. It's more European. It's more utilitarian than anything in this. In the middle, this is the pièce de résistance of the XC90, a soft touch and very thick padded armrest. And just like my XC90 at home, this one has a fridge in the center console, which I really like. There's 2 levels to it. You can make it cool or very cold, and you could fit 4 cans or 2 cans and 2 big bottles in there. That's something that I really like. Another thing that I like about this one are the seats. They're different than the later year XC90 executive seats because they're not perforated, but it is a thicker leather just like the rear seats, and it's substantially softer. This reminds me of the leather of a vehicle that has yet to be discussed on this channel, but they're really nice. Unlike the later year XC90 executives, these don't massage or have cooling, but they're very nice as well. In the middle, you can see this has wood trim in the center. All the other XC90s will have just a black faceplate for the radio. Something else that's very good and shocking about this is the car phone. This has a built-in phone that you could get from the factory, and it uses these buttons on the wheel here. You can use this, and it uses a SIM card, so it's actually crazy. There's also dual zone climate control underneath here. Everything is very similar to my own XC90 at home, and you can see underneath the row of buttons. You can see this one has the stability control, the rear climate control, but this one also has the power folding mirrors, the parking sensors, and this one also has the heartbeat monitor. So if someone is inside the car and it's armed, there's a sensor inside that can let the car know that someone's moving around in here and set the alarm off. It's actually very shocking. Okay, so we're driving the XC90 D5. First of all, the steering has a nice weight to it. I kind of like. This one feels heavier than my XC90, which I like. Mine has a lightweight feeling to it, kind of almost too light. I think this one, that means it doesn't have the variable adaptive steering. I know that was standard on the T6 of this time as well, but probably not the 5-cylinder. Up the hill. The engine is actually pretty quiet for being a diesel as well. I like it. We can see how the power is as we merge. Thankfully, we have open room. It's actually pretty smooth. Of course, not full throttle. I don't want to be breaking Spanish laws. These 18-inch wheels ride a lot smoother than my 20s, that's something for sure. But this still has a very comfortable ride. I can actually hit the gas to get out of the Audi's way. That's funny. You know, I expect more power because the V8 is like, whoa! But this one, it's smooth, consistent power. The engine is quiet, surprisingly quiet for being a diesel. I like it. No wonder a lot of people like these. The tachometer only revs to 4,500 RPM, but that's something with diesels. A lot of the torque comes at about 1,700 RPM, and then it'll pitter out about 3,000 RPM. I do notice the V8 really likes to change gear and shift down. The 6-speed really just have a difference. This one has the 5-speed, so it's a little bit slower to react to, you know, throttle inputs and things like that, but it's actually nice. You can see on the highway, not too much wind noise. XC90 is great on the highway. Oh, that's funny. With kilometers, I feel like I'm going faster than I am, but I'm just doing the speed limit, which is nice. You can see at about 120 kph, I think that's like 75, 80. I'm doing about 2,000 or 2,500 RPM. It's nice. You could drive to all over Europe on this thing. Of course, I feel like power is better in town with this. The low-end grunt would be appreciated. On the highway, it can feel a little bit tired, but it's not too bad. Of course, XC90 isn't a speed demon anyway. The V8 does 0 to 60 in 7 seconds, so it is a difference compared to this one, but you gotta work with what you got. Oh, this exit? Oh, okay. We can use the passing power of the D5. It does have like smooth power, so it's not like it feels breathless at higher speeds. The brakes feel nice. You know, of course, XC90 isn't a super sporty SUV, but it does handle well. Of course, you can tell with the, oh yeah, go around. Well, you can tell with the 18-inch wheels that it is softer, not as tight and taut as the V8 with its big wheels. Huh? Oh, this one. Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely feel the low-end torque at lower speeds. That's where you'd have the most fun with these. I know the later years of the XC90, they have more power in the D5. Some of these have about 180 horsepower, others have 200 horsepower, and I know you can do the Polestar tune on these as well, so power is kind of infinite with these, well, as long as the transmission can hold it. I like the sound of the 5-cylinder as well. It's a nice smooth note. That's why I really like Volvo. It's funny, you really just don't get pushed in your seat like the V8. It's a very smooth and more snail-like way of putting power down. And of course, with the all-wheel drive, it's very sure-footed on the road in all types of weather conditions, snow, rain, anything. That's why I love these things. The ride is good at lower speeds as well. You can see it takes bumps very well. These are great, and they're pretty capable off-road as well. Of course, Haldex Generation 2 isn't as aggressive, this way. It's not as aggressive as the later years because it takes a little bit more time to, you know, shift power to the rear, but it's still good. I'm enjoying my time driving this one. We can see on this speed bump, it takes bumps well. There's no clunks in the suspension, and it's firm, but not too firm. It still has a softness to it, so it makes it comfortable on bumpy roads, going off-roading and things like that. The turning circle, of course, isn't the strong suit of these XC90s, but it's part of the charm, makes them fun to drive. I see that 3.2 over there. I love these things. It's just really nice to be able to drive an XC90 again after not driving mine for almost 3 weeks. So next week I'll be very happy to be back with Duke. XC90. I will say also, I've enjoyed seeing all the Volvos around here. It's been nice. It's nice driving a 5-cylinder Volvo again. Realistically, I could ramble about this car for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, but I don't want to hold you guys too long. I hope you enjoyed looking at this wonderful specimen next to me with the 2.4 D5. It's been a treat to experience this one, although I will say I do miss my V8 at home. It's been very cool. Thanks again to Carlos for letting us look at his XC90. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more Volvo content. The only XC90 I'm looking for now is the XC90 T6. And then I'd like to do the 2.5 again, but you see how it's just so easy to ramble. Again, thank you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, peeps.